My wife cheated with my best friend while I worked overtime every day, so I filed for divorce and took everything she thought was mine. I'm a 29-year-old guy who genuinely believed that providing for my family was the purest way to show love. For most of my adult life, I've lived with this quiet conviction that if I worked hard enough, long hours, double shifts, covering bills before they even reached the table, my wife, Emily, would feel safe, supported, and loved. I thought effort was the language of commitment. I thought sacrifice was the foundation of marriage. And honestly, back then, I was proud of that belief. Most days, I left the house before sunrise, the sky still a deep bluish gray, the air cold enough to sting my face as I locked the door behind me. Emily would still be asleep, curled up in our bed, breathing softly, wrapped in the warmth I couldn't stay to enjoy. She handled the house and the social side of our lives, birthdays, dinners, meetups with friends, while I handled the stability. That was our unspoken arrangement. And then there was Jason, my best friend, the guy I grew up with, the person I'd trusted blindly since we were kids digging holes in the backyard pretending to be explorers. He was the one who always said, "Man, you're doing good. Emily is lucky." I believed him because I believed the world he and I grew up in, where loyalty meant everything. But Emily would sometimes laugh and say, "You work too much, you know that?" I always took it as a light-hearted tease. I'd smile and tell her, "I'm doing it for us," and she would shrug. But lately, something felt different. Whenever I gently asked how her day was, she would tense up, like my curiosity was a problem. Her answers became shorter, sharper, almost annoyed. I ignored it because I thought stress explained everything. I assumed love was still intact. I assumed my place in her life was secure. But looking back, that's when the shift began, quiet, subtle, almost invisible, yet powerful enough that it was already pulling me out of the emotional center of my own home. And I had no idea what was coming next. I wish I could say the tension faded, that Emily snapped out of whatever distant phase she was in, but things only grew stranger. It started with the small things, her spending more time on her phone, tilting the screen away when I walked past, shutting off notifications the moment I entered the room. I'd ask casually, "Everything okay?" And she'd respond with a clipped, "Just talking to friends." No names, no details, just a wall where openness used to be. Around the same time, Jason began canceling plans with me, something he'd never done before. We used to grab beers on Friday nights, watch games, or just talk like we always had. But lately his messages looked like, "Bro, can't tonight. Exhausted. Rain check." Then the rain checks became routine. I'd call, and he wouldn't pick up. I told myself adulthood was just catching up to us, but there was a knot in my chest I couldn't name. One night, I heard Emily whispering on the phone in the living room. The lights were dim, only the glow of her phone illuminating her face. Her voice was low, soft, almost intimate. When she noticed me standing there, she flinched like she'd been caught stealing. "What are you doing up?" she snapped. "I just grabbed water," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She locked her phone instantly. "Well, don't sneak up on me like that." Coworkers noticed my stress spilling through the cracks. One of them, Dave, said, "Man, when someone hides their phone like that, it's a bad sign." I laughed it off in front of him, but the truth burned inside me. I kept telling myself Emily was just overwhelmed. Maybe I was reading too much into it. Maybe I was working too much. But Emily's criticism grew sharper. "You're never around. You don't understand what I deal with. You care more about your job than me." I tried apologizing, tried reassuring her, but nothing landed. It felt like there was a distance forming between us, one I hadn't agreed to, one I didn't know how to close. And slowly, I started realizing I might not be the only one she was pulling away from. The shift became impossible to ignore when I started noticing patterns. Patterns too precise, too repetitive to be coincidence. Emily's girls' nights always seemed to line up with the exact evenings Jason suddenly went off the grid. At first, I thought I was being paranoid, that I was connecting dots nobody had drawn. But once you start seeing patterns, you can't unsee them. One Friday, Emily came out of the bedroom dressed like she was going to a rooftop lounge. Hair curled, heels on, perfume strong enough to trail through the hallway. I smiled and said, "You look amazing. Big night." She barely glanced at me. "Just hanging out with the girls. Don't wait up." Something about her tone felt rehearsed, almost impatient, like she couldn't get out the door fast enough. Later that night, I called Jason just to check in. No answer. I texted him. Yo, everything good? No reply. An hour passed. Then two. Nothing. And that old knot of unease tightened in my stomach. The house felt too quiet. The ticking clock suddenly loud, each second stretching the space between truth and denial. When Emily returned home near midnight, she breezed past me with a quick, "Hey," before disappearing into the bathroom. Her makeup looked smudged, like she'd been laughing a little too hard or wiping something away. "How was girls' night?" I asked. She paused. "Fine." "What?" "No reason," I said, though the words tasted like lies. I started testing small things. I suggested date nights, something we hadn't done in months. Emily shut it down before I finished the sentence. "I'm exhausted. I'm busy. Can we not do this?" Jason wasn't any better. He started avoiding my calls after 9 p.m. entirely, something he'd never done in the 20 years I'd known him. Then a friend casually mentioned seeing Emily and Jason getting coffee together one afternoon. "They looked close," she said, not knowing the grenade she'd just thrown. I laughed it off, pretended it didn't bother me. But inside, a cold dread spread through my chest. Something wasn't right, something I didn't want to believe. The more I tried to act normal, the more everything around me felt wrong. I kept comparing the Emily I married, warm, affectionate, always pulling me into hugs, with the Emily who now recoiled from my touch like I was a stranger. Even when I wrapped my arms around her waist while she cooked, she stiffened. "Not now," she would mutter, shrugging me off. I told myself she was stressed. I told myself marriages had phases. I lied to myself because the truth felt too sharp to touch. But the financial tension didn't help. Emily began complaining about money constantly. "You know, we'd be in a better place if you didn't waste so much time at work," she snapped one evening. I blinked at her. "I work to give us that better place." She rolled her eyes. "Yeah, well, it doesn't feel like it." Her bitterness stung deeper than I expected. I'd been killing myself with overtime, so we didn't struggle, yet somehow I had become the villain in my own efforts. Then I noticed Jason unfollowed me on social media, quietly, without explanation, while still liking and commenting on Emily's posts. That was the first time I felt something crack inside me. I confronted him through text. "Everything good between us?" He replied hours later with, "Yeah, bro. Just been busy." But he wasn't busy. He was present online everywhere, just not with me. Little inconsistencies began piling up. I found restaurant receipts in Emily's purse, places she never mentioned going. When I asked, she snapped instantly. "Why are you snooping?" I swallowed my hurt. I wasn't. It just fell out. She crossed her arms defensively. "We went as a group. Stop assuming things." But the way she said it didn't feel like someone explaining. It felt like someone hiding. That night, lying beside her, I stared at the ceiling while she slept on the far edge of the bed. The silence between us felt heavy, thick enough to choke on. I could feel something slipping away, something important, something that used to feel unbreakable. And for the first time, I wondered what else I was blind to. The moment everything shifted, the moment denial stopped being an option, was stupidly ordinary. It happened on a Tuesday night, after another long shift, when I walked into the bedroom and saw Emily's phone buzzing on the nightstand. She was in the shower, humming to herself, steam drifting out from under the door. Normally, I never touched her phone, but that vibration didn't stop. It buzzed again and again, almost urgently, like someone desperate for her attention. When the screen lit up, the name Jason flashed across it. And then I saw the preview. "Last night was perfect. I can't stop thinking about you." My entire body went cold, as if someone poured ice water into my veins. I didn't open the message. I didn't touch the phone. I just stared at that one line. Those few words that detonated every doubt I tried to bury. My first instinct was to confront her right there, tear open the bathroom door, demand answers. But something inside me, maybe instinct, maybe fear, told me to stay silent. When she came out wrapped in a towel, I forced my voice to sound normal. "You left your phone buzzing," I said. She froze for a split second, eyes darting to the nightstand, before replying too quickly, "It's just work stuff." "Work stuff?" From Jason. At 10 p.m. I nodded like I believed her, but inside my mind was spiraling. That night, I lay awake replaying every moment from the past months, every canceled plan, every defensive comment, every sudden mood shift. And suddenly, All those scattered puzzle pieces snapped into place with cruel clarity. But I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I didn't even break down. I planned. The next morning, before Emily woke up, I quietly pulled our phone records. Long, late-night calls between her and Jason appeared over and over. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., sometimes while I was still at work. My hands shook as I traced the dates. This wasn't new. This wasn't sudden. It had been happening right under my nose for weeks, maybe months. And now that I had seen that message, I knew I couldn't afford to confront her empty-handed. This was only the beginning, and I needed proof. After seeing that message preview, something inside me hardened. The shock didn't fade, it transformed. I stopped being the confused, overworked husband trying to earn love and became someone quietly preparing for war. I knew if I confronted Emily now, she would flip it, twist it, deny it, cry, or somehow make me feel guilty. She was good at that. So instead, I turned inward, cold, calculating, and focused. I started with her location. I'd installed a family tracking app months earlier after she insisted she felt unsafe driving at night. She pretended it annoyed her, but she never turned it off. Now I opened the app with trembling hands. Her girls' nights always pinged at the same street, Jason's neighborhood. Every single time. Still, I needed more. I checked our bank account next. The screen loaded slowly, almost mocking me, before revealing a pattern of withdrawals and transactions I didn't recognize. Bars, restaurants, Ubers, charges at times Emily claimed to be home resting. My jaw clenched. She wasn't just cheating emotionally. She was using my money to do it. I printed the statements quietly at work, slipping them into a folder I kept locked in my car. That week, I paid closer attention to everything she said. Every excuse. Every lie hidden in casual sentences. Traffic was crazy tonight. I lost track of time with the girls. Jason? No, I haven't talked to him lately. Every lie was delivered smoothly, effortlessly, like she'd rehearsed it. One night, when Emily said she was going to dinner with coworkers, I drove to Jason's neighborhood and parked a block away. The engine ticked softly as it cooled. The streetlights buzzed overhead. I watched from the shadows as she stepped out of an Uber, wearing the same dress she wore on our anniversary 2 years earlier, and walked straight to Jason's front door. A neighbor walking his dog paused beside my car. You looking for someone? I swallowed hard. Just waiting for a friend. He nodded. You're a little early. She usually comes around 10. My heart stopped. He'd seen her before. I didn't cry. I didn't storm in. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, realizing the truth was even uglier than I imagined. And I still didn't have everything I needed. The day everything truly shattered wasn't dramatic at first. It wasn't some cinematic storm or explosive argument. It was exhaustion, pure, bone-deep exhaustion, after a week of double shifts. I left work early, thinking maybe I'd surprise Emily with dinner, maybe try to talk, maybe salvage something before it all fell apart completely. I told myself I needed answers, not evidence. I told myself I could still forgive if she admitted everything. But when I turned onto our street, something in the air felt wrong. Too still, too quiet. Emily's car was parked crooked in the driveway, like she rushed inside. Right next to it was Jason's truck. My heart didn't race. It didn't pound. It just stopped. The world around me muted, like someone pressed their hand over my ears. I walked up to the house slowly, each step heavier than the last. The front door was unlocked. The hallway smelled like her perfume, sweet, floral, and something else I couldn't place at first. I moved silently, like my body already knew what my mind refused to accept. When I reached our bedroom door, I heard it. Laughter. Soft, breathy. Then a low voice, Jason's voice, murmuring something I couldn't make out. I stood there frozen, my hand gripping the doorframe, my chest burning as if the air had turned toxic. I wanted to scream, to kick the door down, to demand why. But something stronger held me still. Maybe instinct. Maybe humiliation. Maybe the pain was too sharp for sound. I took out my phone and, with shaking hands, hit record. Then I heard Emily gasp, followed by Jason laughing quietly. The sounds were unmistakable, intimate, cruel, final. Proof I never wanted, but now had carved permanently into my memory. I stepped back, unable to breathe. I felt like I was leaving my own body, drifting above myself, watching a man crumble in silence. I slipped out the front door unnoticed, each step away from the house feeling like a funeral march. Sitting alone in my car, the recording still running in my hand, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just betrayal. This was the moment my entire life collapsed in on itself. And I had absolutely no idea how deep the destruction was going to go. Driving away from that house felt like driving away from my own skin. I kept seeing their silhouettes in my mind, hearing their laughter echoing over the sound of my engine. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even allow myself to think. I just drove, past streetlights, past familiar corners, past the version of me that had existed only an hour earlier. By the time I pulled into the parking lot of an old motel, my hands were still trembling around the steering wheel. I booked a room under a fake name. The clerk gave me a strange look, probably wondering why a grown man looked like he'd survived a car crash. Inside the room, the air smelled like bleach and cheap carpet, but at least it wasn't filled with Emily's perfume. For the first time in months, the silence felt honest. When my phone buzzed, a text from Emily saying, "When are you coming home?" My stomach twisted. Home. That word didn't belong to me anymore. I turned the phone face down and sat on the edge of the bed, trying to breathe normally. Eventually, something inside me clicked. Not anger, not grief, just a cold, precise clarity. The next morning, I found myself sitting in a lawyer's office I'd driven to without even remembering the route. The attorney, a calm man with silver glasses, listened quietly as I told him everything. Not emotionally, not dramatically, just facts, dates, messages, records, receipts, and now the recording. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "You have an extremely strong case, but you need to keep quiet." Completely silent. No confrontation. No warnings. Let her dig her own grave. His voice was steady. Mine wasn't. "So I just pretend everything is normal?" I asked. He nodded. "Until the paperwork is ready, yes. The element of surprise is your power." That night, in my motel room, Emily sent more messages, annoyed at first, then confused, then oddly sweet. "Why aren't you answering me? Are you okay? You're acting weird." I stared at every message with a numb, detached feeling. She had no idea what I knew, no idea what I'd heard, no idea what was coming. And for the first time, the imbalance of power began to shift, quietly, slowly, and completely in my favor. In the days that followed, I moved like a ghost, calm on the outside, hollow on the inside, but sharper than I'd ever been. Staying silent wasn't easy. Every time Emily texted, every time she called, every time she sent a picture pretending everything was normal, a dark part of me wanted to scream the truth at her. But the lawyer's words played in my mind like a mantra. The element of surprise is your power. So I swallowed my rage and faded into the background while preparing the perfect exit. During lunch breaks, I gathered every financial document I'd ever touched, pay stubs, bank statements, receipts, screenshots, everything proving I was the sole provider. Going through them hurt more than I expected. Line after line showed money withdrawn on nights she claimed to be with the girls. Restaurant totals for two. Rideshare trips from Jason's neighborhood. Even a hotel charge that made my stomach knot so hard I had to sit down. Then came the real blow. While organizing our joint bank statements, I noticed transfers, small at first, then larger, moving into an account I didn't recognize. A little digging revealed it was Jason's. She had been funneling my income to him for months under labels like shared expenses and household needs. My chest tightened so painfully it felt like someone was sitting on me. It wasn't just emotional betrayal anymore. It was financial theft. My lawyer's eyebrows shot up when I showed him. "This changes everything," he said. "You're entitled to freeze the accounts immediately." I nodded, swallowing the bitterness in my throat. "Do it," I said. That night, Emily blew up my phone. "Why did my card decline at the store? Are we having money issues? Answer me." Her panic felt surreal. She wasn't used to losing control. I simply texted back, "We'll talk soon." Nothing more. Hours later, Jason tried calling me. His name lit up my screen like a warning sign. I stared at it until it stopped ringing. He must have felt the shift too, the quiet before impact, the pressure building beneath the surface. And for the first time, it wasn't me who felt powerless. It was them. When the paperwork was finally ready, my lawyer handed it to me with a slow, deliberate nod. "Once you serve her, everything changes," he said. "Stay calm. Stay factual. No emotion. That's how you win." I walked out of his office feeling strangely steady, like my nerves had gone quiet because they knew the end was finally in sight. I texted Emily that afternoon. "Let's meet for coffee. We need to talk." She replied almost instantly. "Finally." "Yes." There was a smiley face at the end of her message, a tiny, oblivious reminder of how completely she underestimated me. I chose a busy cafe, one with glass walls and too many witnesses for her to try twisting the narrative. When she walked in, she looked nervous. Not guilty, just unsettled, like she could sense a storm but didn't know where it was coming from. "Hey," she said softly, sliding into the seat across from me. "You've been acting weird." I nodded. "I know." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The clinking of cups, low chatter, and the smell of roasted beans filled the space between us. Then I placed the first stack of papers on the table: phone records, bank statements, screenshots, the timeline I had built piece by piece. Her face drained of color. What is this?" she whispered. "You know what it is," I said quietly. No anger, no raised voice, just truth heavy enough to sink her. She flipped through the pages with trembling hands. "It's not what you think, I swear." I cut her off gently. "There's more." Then I slid the flash drive across the table, the one containing the recording from the bedroom. She stared at it like it was a loaded weapon. Her voice cracked. Please don't do this here." "I'm not doing anything," I replied. "You did." Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "Can we work through this? Please? For us." I pulled out the final envelope, divorce papers, and set them down. "There is no us, Emily." She stared at the documents, her breathing shallow, disbelief etched across her face as the weight of everything finally crushed her composure. And she still hadn't realized the worst part. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was done. The following weeks unfolded like a slow-motion implosion, quiet on the surface, devastating underneath. Once the divorce papers were filed, everything shifted into legal precision. My lawyer guided me through each step, each asset, each clause, each documented betrayal. And Emily, for the first time in our entire marriage, wasn't in control. She walked into the first hearing looking pale and disoriented, like she still believed tears or guilt trips would magically undo the evidence stacked against her. When the judge reviewed the financial documents, her expression changed. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, "these transactions show a pattern of misappropriation and misuse of marital funds. Can you explain these transfers?" Emily's chin trembled. I didn't know. I thought." Jason wasn't there to back her up. He hadn't shown up once. He'd stopped calling her too. The man she risked everything for had vanished the moment the finances dried up. The judge turned to me. "Mr. Thompson, you will retain ownership of the marital home, vehicle, and majority of liquid assets." I nodded, my voice steady. "Understood." Emily whipped her head toward me, disbelief morphing into desperation. "That house is mine too," she whispered fiercely when the judge paused to write something down. "No," I said quietly. "It never was." She tried everything after that. Anger, denial, bargaining. "You can't kick me out of my home. You're being cold. We can fix this." I made a mistake. But my silence, the same silence she used to manipulate, was now a wall she couldn't breach. When the court officially ordered her to vacate the house within 30 days, she broke. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at me like I was the betrayal, not the betrayed. "Please," she choked out, "don't do this to me." I met her eyes. "You did this to yourself." After the ruling, I walked out of the courthouse into daylight that somehow felt brighter than it had in months. She stood alone on the steps behind me, clutching a folder she once believed gave her leverage. For the first time, the power imbalance was undeniable, and she still had no idea the final twist waiting for her. I thought the divorce would be the end of everything, the end of the chaos, the hurt, the humiliation. But life has a strange way of delivering its last blows quietly, almost casually, as if tying up loose threads I didn't know were still hanging. A few weeks after the ruling, I was sitting in my newly reclaimed living room, sorting through old boxes, when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, until I saw the name attached in the preview. "Jason, you were right. She's crazy." She tried to blame everything on me. I stared at the message for a long time, numb. He followed it with another. "I'm done with her. She's a mess." That was it. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a pathetic attempt to distance himself from the wreckage he helped create. I didn't respond. Not because it didn't matter, but because it finally didn't hurt. For the first time, their actions felt small, not defining, not overwhelming, just pitiful. A few days later, the real twist came from Emily. She emailed me, long, rambling paragraphs about regret, loneliness, and realizing her mistakes. She said Jason had ghosted her, that he'd been cheating on her too, that he'd told people she was the one obsessed with him. The irony cut so sharp it almost made me laugh. "I want to talk," she wrote. "Please. I miss you. I miss us." I didn't answer. Instead, I closed my laptop, sat back on the couch, and let myself feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. During the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding, cleaning the house of her things, taking long walks after work, reconnecting with friends I'd abandoned under the weight of her manipulation. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I needed space to understand why I had tolerated so little love for so long. Healing didn't come dramatically. It came in small, quiet moments. Morning coffee without anxiety, evenings without suspicion, a home that finally felt like mine again. One night, staring at the ceiling, I realized something profound. Losing them wasn't the tragedy I thought it was. It was the beginning of a life defined not by betrayal, but by clarity, by the knowledge that sometimes the people you lose are the very ones who were holding you back from becoming who you were meant to be. And for the first time, I felt free.